Ndoko City Muga with you this hour, and our guest host Wajiro Gikonyo here today. Our guest in the hot seat, Cabinet Secretary Zachariah Mwangi Njeru is here with us, Cabinet Secretary for Lands, Housing, Public Works and Urban Development is here. Karibu sana Waziri, good morning to you.
Good morning, thank you very much.
Great to have you here. It's the hot seat, a lot of discussions to have, a lot around the issues. When we speak about the ministry, we say land, and we forget these other vital or critical areas that you also have policy direction over. And so we'll be getting into some of those this morning, and we're glad to have you here in the Situation Room. This man CT every morning gives us a proverb. Proverbs this week are from Malawi, and he's going to welcome you with that.
Malawi actually does have a president, and his name is Lazarus Chakwera. They even have a vice president. His name is Saulo Chilima. And then they have a speaker. It's interesting. Their speaker is a lady by the name of Catherine Gotani Hara. Now, it is interesting that a country that was once a colony of Great Britain still has the heritage that is similar in terms of the governance structure and in terms of the parliamentary structure. It was formerly called Nyasaland, but before it was called Nyasaland, it was called British Central Africa Protectorate. Goodness.
It's a mouthful.
I find this fascinating that someone can leave their country to come and plunder and take over someone's country and then call them their own property.
Protectorate.
That's a consistent mindset.
It's a consistent mindset.
A domination mindset.
Domination mindset.
What is more interesting is that we retained, I don't know whether Malawi did, the wigs, the robes.
They did.
So, yes.
They did. They did.
They did.
The symbols of domination
Yes.
are still part of our culture. What does that say?
Well, it says they're still part of our culture.
Yeah.
Yes. Today's proverb. One does not make a shield in the battlefield.
Waziri, what do you think about that? What does it mean to you?
One does not make a shield in the battlefield.
What it means, the way I get it, is that, once you're in the battlefield, you're there to fight and protect yourself. So you're there either to win or die.
So you go with the shield prepared.
You go prepared.
Yes. So you don't go there and then start making preparations.
Right. You go there when you're ready.
Yes.
Yeah,
right. Thank you.
Waziri, thank you so much again for being here this morning. And we're looking at a ministry under your guidance, under your policy direction for a year, and asking questions and looking at, ways in which things have worked or not worked, and then asking the questions why, and then giving the explanations as to how. Like I said, the ministry is large. When we hear lands, we stop at lands. Most times. Right. And we don't take into consideration urban development. We don't take into consideration public works. Neither do we take into consideration housing. Until, of course, when the housing levy was here and everybody was now, going hammer and tongs about that. So give us a little bit of an overview of what it has been working across those four sectors in the ministry over the last 1 year before we delve into other critical matters.
Yeah, thank you very much. As you've well said, I am in charge of lands, public works, housing, and urban development. So these are three state departments within one ministry. One must, on matters land, we all know land is a very emotive sector. And there has been a lot of issues on matters land. But I am happy to say that within the last 10 months, we've been able to do some reforms, land reforms. And one major reform is the issue on lands digitization of land records. This way, we will be able to we'll be able to secure land tenure, because with digitization, one aspect is to detach human contact with manual with the records. And that way, we are almost through with Nairobi registry, and once we're done with that, we'll now spread out to other parts of the country. So with Nairobi, we are almost through, and it has not been easy. But one thing that has made us succeed is involving all the stakeholders in the land sector. We realized when we came in, the developer of Adisasa had not involved all other stakeholders. So when we came in, we brought in the LSK. We've been working with the Institution of Surveyors of Kenya and also the Bankers Association, and of course fully involved the staff within the ministry who felt that they had been left out. And that way we've been able within 10 months to actualize that process. So we're happy that's working, and of course there are lessons learned, and we are sure now when we spread out it will not be as difficult as it has been. Another issue is that now the government has realized the importance of lands when it comes to revenue generation, and starting this financial year, the government has given the State Department for Lands and Physical Planning the A&A, which will also help us to do things faster, because initially we were always requesting from the Treasury. So this way now we'll be having some money to make us run and move fast. On matters housing, of course, that also has been an issue.
Yes.
And one thing I want Kenyans to know is that we have a problem when it comes to urban housing. There is a very fast and huge urbanization, not only in Kenya but worldwide. So if we don't take care of that now, then we'll have a problem in the future. So the affordable housing program will help us as a country to make sure that people who come to urban areas looking for jobs and greener pastures are well taken care of. 60% of Kenyans living in urban areas living in informal settlements, in slums. And if we don't check that, then it will mean these informal settlements will keep on growing. So this idea of affordable housing will help Kenyans have homes. And I think it's an initiative that His Excellency the President is really supporting. And as a ministry, we are also keen to see that we achieve the 200,000 units that are needed every year. The demand is 250, but the market currently from the private sector only gives 50,000. Out of this 50,000, only 2% goes to the low-income earners. So we still have a huge deficit to accommodate the low-income earners, and we intend to move from the 2% to 50% in the next 5 years, and that is achievable. And we are working closely with county governments, because what we are doing is to make sure that we get land from either the national government or the county government. To also, we are giving incentives to developers by, apart from providing that free land, They're also exempted from the 16% VAT.
Okay.
And also for the first homeowners, they don't pay the 4% stamp duty. So we are really encouraging Kenyans to own homes.
Okay.
One thing Kenyans have been suffering from, especially those living in informal settlement, is that though you pay about 3,500 to 4,000 on rent, there are other fees that come indirectly. One, you pay more for electricity because most of those electricity are illegally connected. So whoever does that will charge you more. You pay more for water. And worse still, you even pay to go to toilets, You can imagine a household of 5 in a day. When you do your sums, at the end of the month, you'll be paying close to 7,000 in that one single room, but you are living in a very indecent way. So the Affordable House Program has come in to make Kenyans live in a decent way, knowing very well that shelter is a basic human right.
Yeah.
And we should give that to Kenyans.
Okay, so you've given us an overview of land.
Right.
There will be questions coming in.
Right.
You've given us an overview of housing, at least over those 10 months.
Right.
Public works and urban development.
Yes. Public works is basically a technical and supportive state department.
Right.
And what we've done, we had stalled projects that had been there stalled for almost 10 years. And in particular, we had 5 county government projects that had stalled. That is Nyandarua, Isiolo, Tana River, I think Lamu. But as we are talking now, Public Works have taken over. And those projects in the next 1 year, they will be done. So they come in, and also we are working closely with now Public Works in preparation for the El Nino, which we all aware could be coming. So Public Works through the NCA is sensitizing developers, talking to county governments to make sure that we mitigate on the El Nino or the El Nino phenomenon. So we have also activated that state department. We have also they lacked enough staff, technical staff. We've now advertised, and we'll soon be recruiting technical staff to help improve on their performance, especially at the regional levels.
Okay.
In urbanization, under my ministry, we also have the Kenya Urban Support Program, which is working closely with the county government, more so in making sure that where we have municipalities. And it's good to let Kenyans know that initially, before we came in, we had 59 municipalities. Now we have 77. So we've added 18 more. So Kenya Urban Support Program is coming in to make sure that those new municipalities are set and the municipal boards are formed. So that's where we are.
Okay. So maybe we can go to land. One of the big ticket issues, big ticket items for land in this country has then been digitization.
Right.
RD SASA then came in to make sure that all records and historical, current and then hopefully future will then be in a system whereby there's no obviously manual handling of records in any way, shape or form. However, we did see that at the beginning of that rollout that it was a bit frustrating, and folks talked about the fact that it was deliberately frustrating because with or without the digitization platform, that the ministry still remains a stomping ground for agents of corruption. How have you been able to deal with that? Because you did say it about a week ago, actually, that with the digitization, we're starting to claw back on the negative steps that have been made on corruption, and that in a short while we will see that cartels who have been inhabiting the ministry would start to be phased out. About last week, right? So how is the experience that folks have been going through different, even when they cry a situation whereby digitization has not really helped matters?
The truth of the matter is digitization will help. One, why we had cartels is it means that there are services that were not rendered well. Then that's where cartels comes in to fill in that gap. But with digitization, for instance, even to do a search, you'll not need to come to the lands offices. That's something you can easily do from the comfort of your phone. Mm-hmm. So what we're saying is, I know with digitization, there are many people who feel they will lose. And there are people, those are some of the people who have been sabotaging the whole process. But when we brought in an all-inclusive teamwork kind of a framework, then they realized that for us to succeed, then we must involve each and every person. The Law Society of Kenya felt left out. The ISK felt left out. The Bankers Association felt left out. But when we brought them on board, and we all agreed we want efficiency in the land sector, and we demonstrated to them how that will help all of us, then we started working together. And I think a month ago, we all came together and gave a statement that digitization is working and it is good for all of us. In fact, the Bankers Association confessed that since we started working together, they have unlocked over 50 billion Kenyan shillings that were locked because of lack of transactions. But with that, with our working together and of course sensitizing the public on how it should work, talking to lawyers because they most of them are the initiators of the processes. Once they have realized how to use this as a platform, things are flowing, and I can assure you, in the very shortest time, we will not have cartels at the house.
Right. Thank you so much. It's good to hear this, and of course, there's a lot of skepticism because of the historical realities around land. Digitization is great. It's really, really important. How will it deal with the interface? Because I think there are still some processes that are manual at the ground level. For instance, if you need approvals on things like subdivision or transfer of property, I imagine there are still some manual processes that then link into the digital. Also, we've seen with processes like IFMIS, where we talk about a digital platform, we've still seen corruption because of the culture. So my question is, once we digitize, how does that protect people? Let's say your lease has expired. We've seen this forced acquisition by cartels coming in to then take over throughout families from where they've lived. We've seen people also lose their land. Maybe some people didn't update their details on this digital platform. It was re-registered. And then there's that human interface. So where are the risks? Is what I'm asking, because I've long since come to realize digitization is about efficiency. It's not always about corruption, because there is still the ability of people to share passwords, hack, and so there's a culture. So what have you identified as the risk points, and what are the mitigation?
One reason why I remember my predecessor before she left, while giving me a brief, she told me Nairobi is fully digitized. But when practically we came to do it, we realized there was a lot of gaps. The processes were not flowing. And that's when we realized a lot of information that has been in the Adisasa was not complete, because land processes, like say transferring a title or even getting that title, there are processes that must be followed. You start with survey, you go to physical planning, you go to land administration, before finally you go to land registration. So when one part is left out, then there's a problem. So what we realized they were doing, to just get a file and then get this data to the system without properly interrogating that file. That was being done by casuals, casual workers, because the files were many, and there was that haste of making sure that we get all this stuff into the system. You see, now, when you don't involve technical staff to do that, then there's a problem. So when we came in, we realized, yes, all this stuff is in the system, but why is this system not working? So we realized a lot of information had been left out. And so we started again redoing the whole thing. So we make sure all key components in a transaction must be in the system. So we believe once we do that, then the process will be seamless.
And the risks essentially would
we reduce,
done away with?
Yes,
because you're digitizing from what point? Like planning is a big issue. That's a county function.
Yes.
Even before planning, there's the very local level. Like we hear, there are politicians. In fact, one of the platforms I'm on right now, there's some assertion that's been thrown to the OCS and some, by the MCA that you're involved in grabbing some public land. Because these people are on the ground, they know available public land, and they're able somehow to maneuver the process at the local level. So digitization starts where? Because if the processes prior to entering into the system are manual, then you haven't resolved the problem.
Yes, and that's what we're saying. Any information that is uploaded into the system must be the correct information. Because once you do it wrong there, then it will mean everything else you'll do after will be wrong. So that's why we are saying we have the survey. That's where we begin from. Survey. That the parcel of land, if it is owned by someone else, it is easily picked. The system will not allow. For instance, if I have a title and you come with yours, and we both claiming ownership, then we go to the system, it will tell us who actually owns that land, yes. Because we look at the documents you have, the documents I have, and then in the system, we see who is actually the owner of that property. So that will reduce very much. Before, in a manual setup, I would remove a paper and put mine. But in the system, in the disaster platform, it will not be as easy. It will not be easy to do that because it's protected.
Sure. Can I say, I'm sorry, I'm being very skeptical here. Right. I have a lot of money. I've eyed a piece of land. Right. I go to a public officer, maybe one working within Artisasa, one working in some whatever, and I bribe. Can they hack the system? You can't. Change data?
You cannot do that. It is protected. It is protected. That one cannot be. It will not be easy to do that. Rwanda is doing very well in that. I think Kenya in Africa will be the second country to do that. So there's a lot to learn from Rwanda.
But having said that, Rwanda has a culture starting from the very top of compliance. Right. Kenya is the opposite. So we put in a system, but what about the culture? Because like you said, the cartels, and these cartels work with government officers, work with ordinary Kenyans. We have a culture problem.
The only problem would come if the influence before we have everything in the digital platform. But once we have everything in the digital platform, I can assure you things will be okay.
So the problem would come in if the wrong information was already.
Yes.
That is where still it's a big issue, Waziri, and we're looking at this particular issue of digitization then as the panacea for corruption, which has been rife at the ministry for years. What you're saying is that with digitization, we will see the decline of the cartels, we will see the decline of corruption. But if we look at the entering of information into a system, for example, where two individuals have title deeds to one piece of land, which we know has happened quite often, that the two different individuals walking around with two documents for one piece of land, which information enters the system, what you're saying now remains the true one. But if there is a dispute based on information that could have been entered wrongly, how is that going to be sorted out futurely?
We are taking a lot of time before doing that. So even the file itself, we really interrogate it. We just don't put everything that is in the manual file into the system. So there's a lot of interrogation. There's a lot of consultation. We have technical people going through those files too, and from experience, they can easily tell what is fake and what is original. So before we do that, before that information is uploaded into the Adisasa platform, there's a lot of work that is done. So because, as you're saying, we wouldn't want a situation where we have disputes later. So that one we are doing, and we have the files within ourselves. And one thing that really delayed us to accomplish this is that shortly before we came, files were removed from Adisasa to create room, and that was because there was that assumption that digitization is complete. But then we came in, we realized no. So we had still to go back to those files and check on them later. But I'm happy to report that with Nairobi Registry now we're done. So there's a lot of consultation. There's a lot of involvement with the technical people. We have the survey people. We have the physical planners. We have the valuers. We have the land administrators. We have the land registration people, all involved to make sure that what is in the system is correct.
You know, the thing about digitalization, in my mind, is not so much the security it offers, but the ignorance that comes with how best to use it. Because here you've digitized. The people who consume that system or who need to come to the Ministry of Lands, how will they be prepared to do this? Having been born in the previous century and having lived in the previous century most of my life, I remember the challenges of using a cell phone. It became easier because I had it every day. But the computer, that was something else. You don't know what to press. You don't know what to do. And yet it's supposed to work. Now, I am thinking with digitalization, your ministry probably has a very simple way of getting people to understand what needs to be done. And it probably has a simple way of getting the legal fraternity, who probably interact with this process a lot more than most people. So what are these ways of getting people to actually access these systems with ease so that they can actually understand all these benefits that you have mentioned?
Yes, we've been conducting webinars to educate members of the public. And also we have deliberately been educating our staff, because those are the first people our customers get interact with. Yes, so it is a collective undertaking for all of us. We also have been educating and sensitizing the members of, the lawyers, because most of these transactions are done by them. So it is all of us. As a ministry, we are doing all what we can to make sure that members of the public are aware of what we are doing, and we also let them know what they're supposed to do for the whole process to be successful.
You see, when something is digitalized, it more or less becomes a one-stop shop. I'm looking at e-citizen, for instance. When I want to renew my driving license, I don't have to see or talk to anybody. I simply have to get onto the platform, and I've renewed it, and life goes on. Now, when it comes to matters of land, there are lots of functions that the legal fraternity were involved in. why do I get the impression that some of these functions may be curtailed? Because once it's digitalized, what will we need all this process? Why will I need to go to a lawyer? Or at what point will I necessarily have to work with a lawyer?
You see here,
Yes.
with the land, with something like a title.
Yes.
That's a legal document.
Yes.
And somehow you must interact with these people, the advocates.
So they like us to believe, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe going forward, this is something that we've started.
Yes.
And of course, we'll be getting a lot of feedbacks from the members of public, and we'll continue improving and seeing how best we can do it. Because as you have correctly said, when the mobile phones came, I remember we used to have very big ones. But today, yes, exactly. Yeah. So with time also, we at least we are happy we've started.
Yeah.
So going forward, I'm sure things will go changing and will be.
So we're looking at digitization of Nairobi.
Yes.
That has happened.
Right.
And almost to completion from what you've said. Also then going towards Murang'a and then Mombasa.
Right.
The truth of the matter is that others outside of these three counties are having a horrible time with something as simple as titling. For example, land registrars in other counties of the country whereby digitization is a pipe dream and is not about to happen, I mean, from what you're saying, asking questions about what is going to happen with them. Land registrars, clerks who deal with land issues, seeking for titles, seeking for, searches, for example, to find which is all very manual and is outside of the realm of the digitization that has happened in Nairobi, that is about to happen in Mombasa, that is about to happen in Murang'a. What happens to them?
One thing we should all agree is digitization is not it's an expensive process. As we are talking, we have already sent computers to all our land registries. We acquired 200 computers. FAO, the FAO is really helping us to on this program, and what
FAO
I want
being
to
the Food and Culture,
Food Agriculture Organization of the UN. Yes, we are working closely with them. They are really helping us on matters digitization and community land. They help us to go out there and spread that word about on land. On community land and digitization. Actually, they've been helping us buy equipment. They don't give money, the equipment, and that way we are working closely with them. So we are telling the wananchi in those other areas that we are still coming there. We've started. They should appreciate that, and within the shortest time possible, we'll have digitized the entire country as far as land records are concerned.
Yeah, Waziri, can I ask a question?
Please do.
You mentioned FAO, and during the devolution conference, FAO spoke on a couple of the panels, and they were speaking in relation to food on one hand, and also on the affordable housing program. I resonated very much with the issues that were raised, both in the plenary and also on the group, on the breakaway on affordable housing, because they said there's a lack of policy framework.
Yes.
So, it's one thing to build a unit, but units exist in a policy environment of land use, and land use then means access to water, access to all those urban services. Now, counties have fared quite poorly on land use. From where you sit, for the success of the affordable housing, but also for this digitization and titling process to make sense, we need to manage the land, because you can have a title, but then it's a title in an upmarket slum because the land use hasn't been done. I know this is a county function, but from your point of view, what needs to be done to deal with this historic, because it is a historical issue, of neglecting to manage land? What do you think needs to be done, and what?
Okay.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, we are on matters housing. We are working closely with the county government. In fact, we've signed 42 counties have signed a memorandum with the State Department of Housing, meaning they also feel that we really need to work together. Most of the land that we are using in the counties have been provided by the county government. And when you come to design and plan, we are working closely together and agreeing. In fact, in some places, we were in Vihiga, I think about 3 weeks ago, and the kind of affordable housing we wanted to come up with was ground plus 4. But then we realized land there is very scarce. To get even an acre in Vihiga is almost impossible. So when we consulted, we agreed we go ground plus 9. So there's that consultation between us and them, and that is what will make the whole thing, succeed. So different models, different areas, depending on how that particular area is. So we are working closely with the county governments, and why FAO is coming in is because we realize most of agricultural land is being subdivided. And we thought if we can provide housing in an agricultural area so that people live there, and then when it comes to to farming, they go to their land. We are working on that model, and it's working because people have realized, like in Kisii, you go to Kisii, you will not get any agricultural land. So, and that's why there's a lot of appetite in Kisii on these affordable houses, because they really want to make use of the remaining land purely for agriculture, and then they stay in certain areas as homes.
However, the policy of how land will be managed in the country then needs to be heard and understood by quite a number of folks, because there are many simultaneous conversations happening at the moment. Whether agriculture is going to take the front, the driver's seat for the economy in the country, then it is a land issue. Whether we're going to say affordable housing now, which is clearly an issue, then we need to see how that is going to be managed. And we've also said that in terms of the land available for use in the country today, that is dwindling every year. It's becoming less and less. Now, the body that's tasked that the ministry should be in consultation with is the National Land Commission. The question is, what policy has the National Land Commission then, that in conjunction with yourselves as the ministry, what kind of agreement is there in place whereby certain land will be used for agriculture, whereby titling of land will then come about as a point of national conversation, whereby the issue of huge tracts of land belonging to colonial settlers have then still become a point of issue? How is that conversation happening today, where we're seeing all of these mushrooming conversations like affordable housing coming into play, agriculture, settling of Kenyans who have not gotten land to live on? I mean, where does that all come into play today?
We are reviewing the National Lands Policy, which we feel it's long overdue, and those issues will be addressed, are being addressed in the National Lands Policy, because we want sustainable management and administration of our land. Because currently, as you have well put it, there is no clear guidance in that. So with this review of the National Lands Policy, I believe we are going to come up with policies that will guide both the national, county, and even private landowners on how best to handle land matters.
Waziri?
Yes.
Two things.
Right.
And I'll go back to these urban services because the World Bank did a review of devolution and found that urban services have fared very poorly under county governments compared to some other sectors that have improved because of inadequate funding. I mean, I think apart from street lighting, if you look at sewerage, if you look at water access, rural has been better, but in the urban areas, those have struggled just because of the cost. If you're talking about doing a 9-story, and we know the allocation to counties has gone down, we know the economy is struggling, that means you're putting up 9 stories, but what about the services to support? Because the infrastructure. Because look at what happens in Nairobi. So do we want, is this a holistic program? And then just a quick one on the national policy. That was a very consultative policy. How do you intend to manage it? Because the affordable housing has been rammed down the throats of Kenyans, and there are concerns about there were so many questions that were asked that were being answered on the go. It's not a good way to do policy. It may be a good idea, but the way it's been implemented really has been very forced. So if you're going to now go review the policy, are we expecting the policy proposals to also be rammed down the throats of Kenyans, or are we looking at a process where that's open, that's independent, that's looking
consultative,
long term?
Waziri, before you answer that question, let me ask Wanjiru a question. When KRA ask you to pay them your taxes, are they ramming it down our throats?
The affordable housing program.
You're avoiding my question.
Are they? No, but KRA are guided by the finance bill. They can't collect revenue without a finance bill.
Yes. Okay. Well, Waziri, go on.
What's your point? He's putting me on the hot.
Okay, I want first to answer that first question on the infrastructures that come with affordable housing. With KUSIP, for instance, Kenya Urban Support Program, one thing they're doing is to make sure that our urban areas have the required infrastructures, sewers, roads, NMTs. They've done that like in Nakuru, Eldoret, and other major towns. But what we are doing with the urban, with the affordable housing, there's the last mile connectivity. So what we are doing, we have realized as a State Department we cannot work alone, and we have engaged other enablers. Like we are working closely with the Energy Ministry, we are working closely with Water Ministry, we are working closely with ICT, we are working closely with the Ministry of Roads to make sure that they bring those services closer to areas that we are coming up with this affordable housing. So within the housing, within our project, we make sure also we provide other infrastructure services. Like, I'll give an example. Yesterday, I visited Pangani housing project. I also visited Jivanji and also the Park Road. And within that project, you realize there are other social amenities. They have social halls, they have ECDs. And being our first projects, now we are now improving in the new projects that we are going into. So making sure that the whole ecosystem is a one-stop, where you get a market inside, where you get an ECD inside, where you get health facilities. So we are making sure that the whole project is attractive. Because we are selling, then we must have reasons to make people go there and buy. And also because of the affordability, they will be more, they'll be more attractive to many Kenyans. Right.
There's something that happened. Are we going on to a break?
We are in a shop, but you can ask a question really quickly.
No, this question will require a longer answer.
Yes. After.
You can.
I can.
Yes.
What happens?
Right.
If, say, a registry burns down and the digitization process has not taken place,
Actually, we have that one example in Kisumu, Ahero. I think somewhere.
It's called Awasi.
Awasi. And you see, now that tells us why we should go digital as soon as we can. Because now we are trying to reconstruct the files. We are calling people who own land around that area to come with whatever record they have, because that's the only way now we can be able to, to have that registry up and running. But if we had digitized, that probably will not be having it, because records are not just kept within that registry. We have a central place where data is kept. So that makes us even go faster to make sure that all our land registries are digitized.
See, why I ask is, for instance, with the survey, you have the headquarters survey of Kenya. Now, there's hardly any survey document that doesn't have a copy at the headquarters.
Right.
Now, the question I'm asking about land, what about title deeds?
Yeah, even titles, they usually have copies.
You do?
Yes, we usually, we also have. But you see, again, you might have a title of a parcel of land and I have it.
Yes.
So to authenticate who is the owner. So that's why we are saying in reconstruction, we also are keen to see that we get the right document.
So there's a positive side to it.
To this digitization.
So essentially, when people come with their title, all you're doing is authenticating it with what you actually have
in the system. All right. We're coming to the top of the hour. Let's take a break. The CS is still with us for another hour, and we'll go into more issues around this ministry and what has happened over the last 1 year of his taking up this position and what to expect.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.